Hello, I'm Sharyl Attkisson. Welcome to Full Measure. This week, the CEO of Wells Fargo was grilled on Capitol Hill over a multi-year scheme that enriched the bank by illegally opening 2 million sham accounts without customers' permission. It seems to be an ongoing theme, big banks behaving badly. A few years back, it was Lehman Brothers, the world's fourth largest bank, until it got caught up in the mortgage crisis. Today, we hear the disturbing story of what happened to 3 women who worked for Lehman Brothers and were calling the crash 11 years ago. These are the allegations from their court case.
Greed is what happened. It's the almighty dollar. And once that comes into play, people lose all consciousness and sense of right.
What these women saw coming was the mortgage crisis that would plunge America into a deep recession in 2008. But their story starts 3 years earlier at B&C Mortgage in Sacramento, California. Starting in 2005, Linda Weeks noticed something fishy. She says loan officers from other companies began submitting loan applications to B&C with documents that were obviously doctored.
I found 5 in one day from the same company.
5 notices that you thought fraud had been committed?
That had falsified documentation in the loans in reference to income, bank statements, and job information. One of the 5 files, they used the same W-2, just changed the information on it.
Colleen Colombo says she saw the same thing.
Information was whited out and then retyped in and copied.
They ended up taking bank statements, and instead of showing the actual deposit, maybe it was 1,000, it was now 11,000, or whatever they needed to do.
They didn't know it then, but it was happening nationwide. Loan officers allegedly falsifying documents to qualify people for loans they probably couldn't afford.
Banks have conditioned us to trust them.
The story was told in The Big Short, a movie released last December.
The whole housing market is propped up on these bad loans. They will fail.
The housing market is rock solid.
It's a time bomb.
When someone's income is exaggerated, it's not doing them a favor because it just means they're going to have a house they can't really afford the payments on.
Exactly. Correct.
It was their duty as reviewers of the loan applications to sound the alarm, and they did so over and over again, they allege in a lawsuit, to their bosses and to B&C's parent company, Wall Street giant Lehman Brothers.
We would bring it to corporate office attention, and they started pushing us away, telling us to quit calling them and bothering them.
Cheryl McNeil claims in the lawsuit higher-ups retaliated by steering work to other employees.
I was closing like 25, 30 loans a month, and that's really good. When I started finding the fraud in the file and questioning it, the branch manager started retaliating against me. And because I was finding the fraud, then he started taking the files back slowly and giving it to another account manager.
Does that affect your income? Are you
It affects my income. It affects my production. Management starts looking at me because my numbers are going down. Each time I complained, nothing happened. Then you just get this feeling like it's not right.
I remember at one point just actually thinking, why on earth? I just cannot believe they are allowing this to happen. These people are not going to be able to make the payments on these homes. This is not good for the company in the long run. It's not good for the homeowners in the long run. And then it clicked, oh, they don't care. It's greed, it's the bottom line. If they closed 10 million last month, let's do 15 million this month. And if you can't do it, you're out.
Too many people in the mortgage industry were getting rich off the questionable loans. The women say the more they resisted what they saw as fraud, the more insistent their superiors became.
So you guys were made into the bad guy when you were actually trying to help the company and the people and flag the fraud.
Yes, we were the troublemakers.
But we thought we were protecting our company by sounding the alarms. We really thought that they would embrace us and be happy and like, oh, thank you. No.
With matters coming to a head, the women allege in their complaint B&C brought in a mysterious account manager named Daniel, who began stealing their files at night, they say, and harassing them mercilessly by day.
He walked past my office regularly with his hands in his pocket, simulating masturbation. I thought it was all in my mind.
We didn't know what Daniel's role was in the office. He just walked around stimulating masturbation. So one day I remember he just came over to my desk and he just scooted up against me, started breathing down my neck and made sexual references to me, like he would like to be with a black woman. He's just a really, really creepy guy.
We were unable to reach Daniel, who's a named defendant in the case. Lehman Brothers wouldn't agree to an interview or address claims about Daniel. In the past, the company has said it hired an outside investigator to review the women's complaints about fraud, but found no evidence BNC employees were slipping falsified documents into loan files. In the lawsuit, Weeks says a manager brushed off her concerns about Daniel.
I reported him. He did racial slurs to me. I reported those. And I said, this is what Daniel did. And he says, oh, well, we call him Chester the molester. And he dismissed it all.
Did you come to the conclusion that Daniel was sent there to harass you and make you uncomfortable so that you would leave?
Because when we even went to corporate office asking, who is this person and what is his position here? What does he do? We can't understand why he is here. And we were told, you know, basically not to worry about it and do your job and close your loans.
If the goal was to make the women quit, it worked. McNeil was first to go.
What would you say was the reason you were quitting?
Just couldn't take it anymore. You know, it wasn't a good environment. It wasn't good on my health, you know, and it was very, very stressful. Every day you would just cry because you didn't know what was going to be happening to you.
Weeks was soon behind her after a final close encounter with Daniel alleged in the lawsuit.
Daniel's in back of me with his hand on my shoulder, breathing down my neck, asking me, can he help me? And at the same time, he's pushing his genitals against my backside. Well, I lost it because I had a panic attack immediately. And I thought I screamed, but they tell me I didn't. They just saw me run out of the office.
By September of 2005, 6 women had resigned from BNC.
We refused to participate. We refused to turn a blind eye, and we have a conscience. I have a conscience. If I say that this is a good loan, I want it to be good for my company. More importantly, I want it to be good for the homeowner, and that's what got lost.
Before long, the ceiling began to collapse on the mortgage industry. Certainly not all foreclosures involved fraud, but here's one example of how homeowners got in way over their heads. In 2002, this California home sold for $301,000. In 2005, at the height of the bubble, it sold for more than double, and BNC financed the entire cost, according to public records. By 2006, it was in foreclosure. BNC had made so many bad loans, Lehman Brothers shut it down in 2007 and then filed for bankruptcy protection itself in 2008. Just like the women had feared and warned about, the chickens had come home to roost.
And it was happening, and now look what it's done. It was almost surreal. It was like, this is really happening.
They sued Lehman Brothers, claiming wrongful termination, but the bankruptcy stalled their day in court. And so the very women who worked so hard to make sure people could keep their homes lost their own.
You become labeled as a whistleblower, and mortgage companies don't want to hire you because you're a risk. I wasn't able to find work, and that affected my whole life. I lost everything.
I lost my apartment. I lost my car. I wasn't able to, send my son off to college.
So the interesting thing is...
Gary William is the attorney representing the women in their lawsuit.
It sounds like these women were unknown players in The Big Short.
Well, they were, but nobody paid any attention to it. It's now been over 10 years, almost 11, and their cases have languished in the largest bankruptcy in the history of the United States.
In an appearance before Congress in 2008, former Lehman Brothers chairman Richard Fuld took responsibility for the collapse of Lehman Brothers and BNC, but denied misleading investors.
Your company is now bankrupt. Our economy is in a state of crisis, but you get to keep $480 million.
I believe my cash compensation was close to $60 million, which you have indicated here, and I believe the amount that I took out of the company over and above that was I believe, a little bit less than $250 million. Still a large number, though.
Today, Fuld is reported to have a mansion in Greenwich, Connecticut, and posh digs on Florida's Jupiter Island. His Sun Valley, Idaho estate sold at auction for $20 million.
They still have their vacation homes. Nothing has been upset for them. They're not being punished. We have been punished. We are still being punished. So I don't see why they should get off the hook when we tried to help them. This was the most devastating thing that could have happened to a great country such as this. It brought us to our knees. It collapsed our financial structure. They just wrote a whole new book and have been allowed to operate out of it. So I think it's unfair.
Today, the country is recovering from the recession, and the women are hoping to reach a settlement with what's left of a liquidated Lehman Brothers. But life has taken a permanent turn.
It's devastated me. My self-esteem. I used to be a very competent, resourceful, and good underwriter, and I just don't have the confidence anymore. I can't remember how the strength of that person that I used to be is gone.
It's so devastating, and people don't really realize, but to know her before and to know her now and to hear her say that, it's kind of painful. It's very painful because it's so unfair. It makes no sense to us.
Lehman Brothers still negotiating debts, and bankruptcy court has said in the past that it denies the women's complaints and intended to fight them. So far, settlement talks in the case have been unsuccessful. Up next on Full Measure, to stop homegrown terrorists in the U.S., Scott Thuman takes us to Britain, where a program to de-radicalize youth is showing some signs of success.